Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in here to the Gospel of Luke. So what we're going to do with this first chapter is we're going to break it down into several sections. And the first section of Luke that we want to look at in chapter 1 is verses 1 through 4, which is called the Prologue of the Gospel. And the prologue here does a lot of different things for helping us understand Luke, helping us understand the story that he has here. So when we look at this first section of Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, you really see how the author is establishing both himself and his story. In this section, Luke is very careful to show what a meticulous historian he actually is. He talks about having examined eyewitness accounts. He talks about other written narratives. He talks about his own research, the careful examination of materials that he has done. This is actually the only instance of the word eyewitness that you have in the entire Bible. So, in this section, the author, Luke, does a lot to help us see and help give us confidence that he has done his research and that he really knows what he's talking about. And that's really the purpose of this section of the Gospel. Luke says that he wants to give us confidence and give us certainty that what he is reporting is accurate. So that leads to the possibility that two things could happen. From Luke's perspective, you'd have the idea of a non-believer reading this, or at the time hearing this story and being converted, coming to the faith. But the other idea is that Luke's Gospel, by having this confidence and certainty, would provide encouragement for believers to remain and to show them how to be proper Christians. So he has two different things going here with this idea of giving confidence and certainty to his reader, right? So there are different views, right, competing views on this prologue about whether this prologue, because it is very short, right, but some have said that this prologue is kind of formulaic and it's conventional. You know, it has this dedication to Theophilus, who may or may not have been Luke's patron. Right? It certainly was not uncommon in this time period for authors to dedicate books to their financial patron. And so it's entirely possible that Theophilus may have been a real person who provided the support for the writing of this gospel. But others have seen that, you know, this name could easily be a symbolic name. When you break the Greek name Theophilus down, it literally means lover of God. So is this an actual person, an actual patron, or was this name suggested for symbolic reasons? Well, obviously that's not something we can know. But in either case, some have said, you know, this prologue is very conventional, it is kind of minimal. Others prefer to look at it as, you know, everything in the Gospel of Luke has a very deep significance. So probably, you know, it's going to depend on your own perspective, your own mindset, as how you interpret this prologue in the Gospel. But either way, what we can say about the prologue when you look at it is that it does follow a very well-known historical pattern. Luke is showing himself, he sees himself as having written a very historical account, this historical narrative. It's kind of interesting because some have suggested that Luke is actually in some way dissatisfied with some of the earlier narratives and some of the earlier accounts that he had access to. Right? If earlier accounts had been sufficient, then why is Luke writing this account? He talks about others had tried to set down an orderly account, as if they had tried to do it and maybe had not been entirely successful at doing it. So it's possible that Luke maybe wants a more cohesive or orderly narrative than he has seen in the past. For example, we know that Mark was one of Luke's sources, and when you look at the difference between Mark and Luke, you see that Luke has actually done quite a bit to edit Mark's gospel to make it flow a little more clearly, make it more linear and more concise. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to the next section, which is about the prophecy of the birth of John the Baptist.